Hello, Tristan here, and today we'll be reading The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Genie. I'm not sure I'm saying his last name properly, but I think that's how you say it. And for the reasoning is that I think everybody should know how other people think, work, and operate. But for a fair warning, for a book like this, it would reading a book like this would fundamentally change how you look at relationships, look at interactions, and how even you might look at other animals like dogs or cats. Like, because everything has set code for it, like in the way that it thinks and operates. Like us people, we're social animals. Well, dogs are dogs. I don't know anything about dogs, but you should understand my point. But I'm gonna start by reading this book, not on a reading long, more of I'm gonna go through the book chapter by chapter and tell you guys how I feel about this book and how you might apply it to your day-to-day life going through the book. But obviously I'd like to avoid copywriting so this video can stay on, whatever social platform I decide to post it on, but that's the idea. I'll catch you guys once I have a PowerPoint ready for you guys. So we're gonna take a pause here right before the interpretation for the first part, and I'm gonna tell you guys a few of the words that I learned while reading. So there's one called pearls, which is basically when something's in serious risk of happening, and there's another word called permanent. So let me see what preeminent, and what that means is basically the greatest or the best. Basically, when something is at the upper echelon of things, which is really cool. This is my microphone, by the way. Sorry if I messed with the audio. But the main theme that I seen here was so imagine two major countries, right, going to war, right, and one side was in trying to not go to war, but they also saw why they should, and the other one also wanted to go to war. It is the Spartans, by the way, who wanted to go to war. Of course they would, because they're the fucking Spartans. Duh. And the book is going over why people made their decisions and the consequences and how they end up losing. And that's more or less the theme for at least right now. And the main problem, at least one thing that I thought was really kind of crazy, is the strategy they chose in the midst of the war, or right before the war even happened. And the strategy they decided to go with was one where they would pretty much sit back and hold down the line to make sure that the enemies can advance, and eventually they would run out of resources. That was the whole theme of the plan. Eventually our enemy won't be able to feed themselves, but they'll run out of resources. And to say that type of strategy, I learned this lesson in Brawlhalla, right? With a strategy like that, if you run away from things or try to avoid the conflict aspect of it, inevitably you'll end up in a position of loss. Because look, like I learned this playing video games. If you let's say you're playing Rainbow Six Siege, right? It's bomb, it's house, right? And the enemy, you decide, hey, I'm gonna sit over here in main bedroom and I'm gonna watch down main stairs just to make sure, our enemy can't get inside of our little base, our castle, which does work in theory, but one thing that it fails to contemplate is relentless action. You only have so many bullets. You can only look at so many different angles. You can only do so much. So if you don't also actively pursue or be worried of the conflict as well, you'll ultimately end up in a position of loss, because you'll get overwhelmed, basically. So that's what I think about the strategy that they chose. And also another thing, there's another book by Robert where it's called the 48 Laws of Power, and in there's this law that says something about don't enclose yourself, like don't build a castle around yourself. And it's funny how that law actually ended up playing out in here, because let's say the good guys here decided to huddle up, essentially, they ended up paying for it, which is literally what the law says avoid. So it's kind of funny how to see how that played out in history. Well, yeah, I'll get back to it now. The second episode. Where's my little microphone thing? Oh gosh, I'm losing my take over here. I'll just press the button. Deuces, see you soon. This is pre-interpretation Tristan. So I read the interpretation part, and now after reading it and looking at it, it makes a lot more sense on the choices that they all made inside of the book, like on the reasons why the Spartans acted the way they did, on the reason why our heroes were working the way made the decisions that they did, and it all comes down to their own personal beliefs onto why things work the way they work and why people do the things they do. Like, for example, the main character in this situation was talking about how, in fact, in his main reasoning on why they shouldn't go confront the war aspect of it, was because it would essentially traumatize the people. It would make their society different, and that's what he wanted to avoid, which inevitably led to his position being stuff happening, right? So yeah, that's like one way you guys should look at it. And yeah, and there's also goes over like a bunch of different factors, like on how you could go about recognizing it, and recognizing your bias, recognizing the reason why you're making choices, and how we convince ourselves of that truth, of our truth.